Quinn has been a liability to this company for 3 years. It's time we stop pretending. My father said that while looking at my grandfather. On my 32nd birthday. In a room with 15 people, a projector, and a PowerPoint titled Company Direction. There was an org chart on the screen with my name at the bottom. Lemon bars on the sideboard instead of birthday cake. They'd spent 4 months manufacturing the evidence. A leaked bid that cost us $47 million. Projects delayed on purpose. $1.5 million siphoned through fake invoices. All of it designed to make one person look incompetent, me. And on my birthday, in front of 15 people, they were ready to finish the job. They asked my 79-year-old grandfather to remove me from the company he'd built, the company he'd trusted me to run. They did it on my birthday because they thought I wouldn't make a scene in front of him. What they didn't know was that I had a flash drive in my blazer pocket. A flash drive that would turn their entire plan to destroy me into dust. If you've ever been underestimated by the people who were supposed to be on your side, this story is for you. Like and subscribe before we go back to where it all started. My name is Quinn Aldrich. I'm 32. I'm the COO of a $180 million development company, and I eat protein bars for dinner most nights because there's never enough time. My condo in Uptown has 2 bedrooms. The second one is empty because I haven't had a weekend free to buy furniture in 3 years. I drive a Lexus I bought used. It's the only thing I've ever purchased for myself that nobody asked me to share, split, or redirect towards someone else's emergency. And every month, roughly $4,200 leaves my account. Chloe's Audi maintenance. Cole's expense overages that Dad asks me to cover quietly. Lorraine's Pilates retreat, a family membership Quinn don't make it a thing. Kenneth's country club dues, which somehow became my line item because it's good for the company image. I keep a spreadsheet. Column A date, column B amount, column C reason, column D, thank you. 3 years. 0 entries in column D. But I'll get to the money. First you need to understand the truck. Let me take you back 3 years to the night my grandfather offered me the keys to everything he'd built, and the moment my father decided I didn't deserve them. 3 years before that Saturday, I was standing in a parking garage at Thornton Institute of Technology, holding my MBA diploma in one hand and my phone in the other. My grandfather was on the line. His voice was the same voice I'd heard my entire life, gravel and certainty, no filler, no decoration. Quinn, you ready to come home? I was. I'd been ready since I was 14 years old, sitting in the back of his truck while he drove me through downtown Dallas, pointing at buildings. That one's ours. That one will be. See that empty lot? That's a 40-unit residential complex waiting to happen. He didn't talk to me like a granddaughter. He talked to me like a partner who just hadn't arrived yet. The time I graduated, the company had $180. The time I graduated, the company had $180 million in annual revenue, 47 commercial properties across Texas and Oklahoma, and a name on 3 buildings you could see from the I-35 overpass. Eugene built all of it. Every contract, every foundation, every negotiation, his fingerprints were on the concrete. He had 2 grandsons and 1 granddaughter. Cole, my older brother, 34, me, 31 at the time, and technically our cousin Landon, who moved to Portland at 22 and opened a ceramic studio. Landon was not coming back, so it was Cole and me. Or if you ask my father, it was Cole. My father is Kenneth Aldrich, 57, board member, former interim CEO for 18 months in 2017 when Grandpa Eugene had his knee replaced. In those 18 months, Kenneth managed to lose 1 major client, approve a strip mall project that went $2.3 million over budget, and alienate the company's longest-standing subcontractor. When Eugene came back, he quietly reversed every decision Kenneth had made. He never said a word about it publicly. That's not Eugene's style. He doesn't humiliate. He corrects, and the correction speaks for itself. But Kenneth remembered. He remembered the way the board stopped CCing him on emails. He remembered the look on Harold Stanton's face. Harold is the company's general counsel, been with Aldrich since 1994, when Kenneth tried to chair a meeting and Harold gently said, "I believe Eugene has the agenda today." Kenneth smiled through it. He always smiles through it. My father is the kind of man who shakes your hand while planning your removal. When Eugene appointed me as COO 3 years ago, he did it at the annual board dinner. 14 people in the private room at the Brass Anchor downtown. White tablecloths, filet mignon. Eugene stood up, adjusted his bolo tie. The man wears a bolo tie to board dinners, always has, and said, "Quinn starts Monday, she reports to me." No vote, no discussion. Eugene held 51% of the shares. That was the discussion. I watched my father from across the table. He cut his steak. He chewed. He swallowed. Then he said, "Good choice, Dad," and reached for the breadbasket. Cole didn't even manage that. He set his fork down, looked at our mother, and said, "Seriously, Lorraine." My mother put her hand on his arm. The gesture was small. The message was clear. Not here. That was 3 years ago. And in those 3 years, I learned something about my family that I should have understood much earlier. They don't fight the decision. They fight the person. The first year was subtle. Small things. The kind of things you notice but can't prove, like humidity. You feel it, but you can't hold it in your hand. Cole's office was on the same floor as mine. Same square footage, same view of Elm Street. But when the building management offered new furniture packages, Cole got his approved in a week. Mine sat in Kenneth's inbox for 3 months. When I finally got it, the chair was wrong. Standard model, not the ergonomic one I'd ordered. I mentioned it once to my father. He said, "You're spending company money on a chair, Quinn, optics." Cole's office had a standing desk, a Herman Miller Aeron, and a mini fridge. Nobody mentioned optics. Board meetings. Every quarter. I prepared the market analysis, the revenue projections, the risk assessments. I presented them. Cole sat 3 chairs down, scrolling his phone. When a board member asked a question about a projection, my father would answer before I could. "What Quinn means is," and then he'd restate what I'd said almost word for word, but with his voice, his framing, his name on it. After one meeting, a board member named Frank Weaver pulled me aside. "Your dad's sharp. That analysis on the Oakstone corridor was brilliant." I'd written every word of it. Kenneth had read it off a printout I'd handed him that morning. The Christmas bonuses. This one stung in a way I didn't expect. I found out through Priya, my friend from business school who does freelance forensic accounting, that Cole's bonus was $42,000. Mine was $28,000. Same year. Same company. I was COO. He was VP of Operations, a title my grandfather created because Cole needed something on his business card. I brought it to Kenneth. His response was 7 words. "Cole has a family to support Quinn." Cole had been married to Paige for 2 years. No kids. They lived in a 4-bedroom house in Highland Park with a pool they never used and a Range Rover in the driveway that Paige drove to SoulCycle 3 times a week. I hadn't taken a vacation since starting at the company, but Cole had a family to support. I let it go. I let a lot of things go. Sunday dinners were at Eugene's ranch, 30 minutes outside the city, past the last cluster of new construction where the road turns from asphalt to gravel and the houses spread out like they're trying to get away from each other. Eugene's place is 11 acres. Not a working ranch. He doesn't run cattle anymore, but there's a barn, a stock pond, and a wraparound porch where he sits every morning with black coffee and the Financial Times. Every Sunday, the whole family. Eugene cooked. Brisket always. 12 hours in the smoker. He started it Saturday night and checked it twice before dawn. The man ran a $180 million company and still woke up at 4 a.m. to rotate a brisket. Lately, though, I'd noticed his hands shaking slightly when he poured the coffee. And last month I'd arrived early and found him asleep in the porch chair, fallen asleep waiting for the brisket the first time in 53 years. He was 79. Time was doing what time does. Those dinners were the only time I saw the whole family in one room without a boardroom table between us. And even there, the hierarchy was visible. Cole sat at Eugene's right. I sat at the other end next to Lorraine. Kenneth sat next to Eugene's left and spent dinner performing steering the conversation toward company wins that were mine and presenting them as collaborative family victories. Quinn put together the Ridgemont analysis, Eugene would say. Kenneth would nod. She did a terrific job. Cole and I walked her through the zoning implications first, of course. Team effort. Cole would grunt in agreement. Their coordination was seamless, almost rehearsed. Cole played the steady son waiting his turn. Kenneth played the proud father supporting his daughter. And I sat at the other end of the table watching two men take credit for my work while passing the coleslaw. Paige was different, or at least I thought she was. She started at Aldrich 18 months ago. Business development. Kenneth hired her directly, which I found out after the fact he didn't consult me, even though BD technically fell under operations, which fell under me. When I asked, he said, "She's family Quinn. I didn't think it required a committee." At first, Paige was the only person in that family who seemed genuinely interested in what I did. She'd stop by my office, 2 lattes in hand, and ask about whatever project I was running. Not surface questions, real ones. How did you structure the lakeshore bid? What's the margin play on mixed use versus pure commercial? What made you go aggressive on the Meridian proposal instead of matching Crestline's range? I was so grateful for the attention that I answered every single one. She'd sit on the edge of my desk, I remember this, because she always wore the same perfume, something with sandalwood, and take notes on her phone. "I'm learning so much from you," she'd say. "Cole never explains anything. He just grunts and points at spreadsheets." I laughed at that. I told her things, strategy things, margin calculations, client relationship details. The Meridian Tower bid our biggest proposal that year, $47 million. I walked her through the entire pricing architecture one Tuesday afternoon while she ate a salad at my conference table. She was building a file. I was building a friendship. One of us was doing it right. Have you ever kept count of what you gave to people who never said thank you? Tell me in the comments. And if you're still here, hit that like button. There's something I need to tell you about my grandfather because it's the reason I stayed. Not the money, not the title, not the corner office. Eugene. When I was 9, my parents went to Cabo for a week. Cole went to basketball camp. I stayed with Eugene. That week, he taught me how to read a blueprint. Not the way you teach a child, simplified, dumbed down. He spread a full commercial blueprint across his dining room table and walked me through it like I was a junior associate. This is load-bearing. This is cosmetic. Know the difference because one holds the building up and the other just makes it pretty. I asked him why he was showing me this. He said, "Because your brother didn't ask." That was Eugene. He didn't choose favorites based on birth order or gender. He chose based on who showed up. And I showed up. Every summer, every school break, every chance I got. By 16, I could read a pro forma. By 20, I was sitting in on client meetings. By 24, I was running them. Eugene told me once at this same ranch, standing by the stock pond at dusk while the crickets screamed, "This company is my other heartbeat. When I'm gone, someone has to keep it beating. I'm trusting you." That promise is why I stayed through the dismissed ideas, the stolen credit, the $14,000 bonus gap. Because walking away from Kenneth and Cole also meant walking away from Eugene, and Eugene had given me everything my parents hadn't belief. Specific, demonstrated, unwavering belief. So I stayed. I worked. I swallowed. But a person can only swallow so much before it starts coming back up. 4 months before my birthday, a Sunday afternoon. I'd arrived early at the ranch, 20 minutes before dinner, brisket tray in both hands because Eugene had asked me to carry it from the smoker. I was rounding the corner of the porch when I heard my mother's voice through the open kitchen window. She was on the phone. Her voice was light gossipy, the voice she uses with her friends when she thinks the family isn't listening. Quinn thinks she's smarter than all of us because Daddy gave her a title. Cole at least knows how to treat people. Quinn only knows spreadsheets and PowerPoints. I stopped walking. The brisket tray was heavy in my hands. The afternoon heat pressed down on my shoulders. Kenneth's right, Lorraine continued. She doesn't have leadership instinct. She has control instinct. There's a difference. And honestly, the girl can't even find a husband. What does that tell you about her people skills? She laughed. The other person laughed. Two women laughing about me while I stood on my grandfather's porch holding my grandfather's brisket 3 feet from the window. She wasn't talking about the company. She wasn't talking about numbers. She was talking about me, her daughter, as a defect. Something broken. Something to be explained away to friends over the phone like an embarrassing medical condition. I stood there for 10 seconds. Then I walked inside, set the brisket on the counter and said, "Smells great, Mom." Lorraine's face flickered a half-second of panic before the mask settled back. "Oh, you're early. I didn't hear you come in." "Back door was open," I said. She studied my face. I kept it still. She went back to slicing tomatoes. I sat through that dinner. I passed the coleslaw. I smiled when Kenneth stole credit for the lakeshore analysis, and I drove home with my hands steady on the wheel and something hard and cold forming behind my ribs. Not anger. Not yet. Recognition. My mother wasn't a bystander in whatever was happening. She was a participant, an architect, building the case against me in living rooms and phone calls and Sunday kitchens, one conversation at a time. 3 weeks later, it got worse. The quarterly board dinner had just ended. Same private room at the Brass Anchor, same filet mignon, same bolo tie. After dinner, I went to the restroom. On the way back, I passed the hallway that leads to the small private bar area. The door was cracked. Kenneth's voice. Low, careful, the voice he uses when he doesn't want Eugene to hear. "The timeline is perfect. She's already struggling with Meridian. If Cole delays the subcontractor approvals another 2 weeks, the whole project stalls. Board sees it. Eugene sees it." Cole's voice. Flat, certain. "And the bid? Paige handled it. Crestline already has our numbers. They'll undercut by 8%. When we lose Meridian, that's 2 major losses in 1 quarter. The board will have no choice." My hand was on the wall. I remember because the wallpaper was textured some kind of raised pattern and I was pressing my fingers into it hard enough to feel the ridges through my skin. Kenneth continued. "We do it on her birthday, family meeting at the ranch. Eugene will be there. We present the numbers, her numbers, and we let the board see what a year under Quinn looks like. Cole steps in as interim. Clean. Professional. No drama. And if she fights it," my father's voice didn't change. Not a single degree. "She won't. Quinn's smart, but she's sentimental. She'll step aside before she lets it turn into a public fight in front of Eugene. She'd rather lose the title than lose his respect." I backed away from the door. Slowly. 1 step at a time. My heels were silent on the carpet. I made it to the main hallway, leaned against the wall, and stared at the ceiling for what felt like a full minute. Then I called Priya. She answered on the second ring. She always does. "I need a forensic audit," I said. "Unofficial, off the books. Just you and me." Priya didn't ask why. She asked, "How deep?" "Everything. Vendor invoices, subcontractor payments, internal bid documents, Cole's expense reports, my father's accounts. Everything for the last 18 months. Quinn, are you sure?" I thought about my grandfather's voice at the stock pond. I thought about the promise. I thought about Lorraine's laugh through the kitchen window. I thought about Paige's perfumed sandalwood and the way she'd said, "I'm learning so much from you." "I'm sure." I hung up and walked back to the dining room. My father was already there, seated, smiling, refilling Eugene's coffee cup. He looked up at me. "Everything okay, Quinn? You were gone a while." "Fine," I said. "Just checking my messages." He nodded. Went back to pouring. His hand was perfectly steady. So was mine. The Meridian Tower contract was worth $47.3 million. 18 months of work. 4 rounds of negotiation. The kind of project that defines a company's decade. I'd built every number in the bid myself, walked the site with the developer's VP twice, restructured our subcontractor network to hit a margin nobody else in Dallas could touch. We lost it on a Tuesday. The call came at 8:47 a.m. Marcus Hale, the developer's lead, didn't waste words. Quinn, we're going with Crestline Partners. Their pricing came in significantly below yours. Significantly below. For Crestline to undercut us by exactly 8% on a bid that was already aggressive, they'd have to know our numbers. Not guess no. The architecture, the flex points, the margin. Everything I'd told Paige over salad at my conference table. I thanked Marcus, hung up, set the coffee down, wrote a single line on a post-it note, $47.3 million. Crestline, 8%. That post-it stayed on my monitor for the next 3 months. Every morning, first thing I saw. Within 2 weeks, 2 clients called to check in code for, should we be worried? One of them, a property management firm we'd worked with for 9 years, signed with a competitor the following month. The damage was spreading. The board called an emergency session. 12 people in the conference room, Eugene at the head, Kenneth to his left, Cole to his right, me at the opposite end. Cole stood up and did something I'd watched him do 100 times. He buttoned his jacket, the gesture of a man putting on a costume, and presented my failure to the room. 11 weeks of delays, red markers across the timeline. Each one caused by approvals that sat on his desk for weeks while he cited due diligence. He'd built the delay. Then he showed the delay as evidence that I couldn't lead. The worst part wasn't the accusation. It was the concern. Quinn, I'm not blaming you, but the numbers don't lie. He looked at me the way you look at someone you've already decided to replace, gentle, sad, final, and the room believed him. I could feel 12 people lean half a degree in his direction. Kenneth finished it. Nobody's pointing fingers, but $47 million is $47 million. He looked at Eugene. The whole room looked at Eugene. Eugene said nothing. Picked up his pen, turned it once between his fingers, set it down. We'll revisit next quarter. Meeting adjourned. No defense. No, Quinn has my confidence. Just a pen and a silence that felt like a door closing. 2 days later, Eugene called me to the ranch. Not a Sunday dinner. Just me. Thursday afternoon. That had never happened before. I drove the 30 minutes with the radio off. He was on the porch. Black coffee. Financial Times folded on the side table unread. That was unusual. Eugene always reads the FT first thing. Sit down, Quinn. I sat. He didn't look at me right away. He looked out at the pasture where a pair of horses were standing in the shade of a live oak. He watched them for a long time. I've been running this company for 53 years, he said. I've survived 2 recessions, a lawsuit that almost broke us, and a partner who stole $400,000 and moved to Costa Rica. I know what trouble looks like. He turned to me. This looks like trouble, Quinn. Grandpa, the delays aren't. Leadership isn't just about being right. His voice wasn't angry. It was tired. A 79-year-old man watching the thing he built shake on its foundation. It's about keeping the ship afloat. If the ship is sinking, the captain doesn't get to argue about who drilled the hole. He picked up his coffee, took a long sip. I'm not pulling you, not yet. But I need you to understand something. I can't protect you from the board if the numbers don't turn around. I won't protect you at the expense of this company. Not you. Not Cole. Not your father. Nobody. I sat there on that porch in the chair I'd sat in since I was 9 years old, and I felt the ground shift underneath me. The person I trusted most in the world was telling me he might let it happen. I understand, I said. He nodded. Then he looked back at the horses. Good. I drove home, pulled into my parking garage, turned off the engine, sat in the dark. I thought about resigning. Seriously. Not the fantasy version, the real one. Typing the letter, printing it, leaving it on Eugene's desk Monday morning. Walking away. I'd be fine. I had savings. I had credentials. But then Eugene would be alone. Kenneth and Cole would have the company, and everything my grandfather built 53 years, every building, every handshake, every 4 a.m. brisket check would belong to men who saw it as a piggy bank, not a legacy. I couldn't do it. I was sitting there, engine off, lights off, hands on the steering wheel when someone knocked on my window. I flinched, looked up. Owen, standing there with a brown paper bag from the taco truck on McKinney Avenue. He held it up. His face said nothing except, "I'm here." I unlocked the door. He got in the passenger seat, pulled out 2 foil-wrapped tacos and a bottle of Mexican Coke, and set one taco on my lap. "Al pastor," he said. "Extra cilantro." We ate in silence for 5 minutes. Owen Castillo doesn't fill silence with words. He fills it with presence, which is harder and rarer. He's an architect, buildings, not companies, and we met 14 months ago at the Meridian Tower site when he was consulting on the facade design. He sketches on everything: napkins, receipts, the back of parking tickets. Our first date, he drew the restaurant we were sitting in on the paper placemat, complete with the crooked light fixture above our table. I kept that placemat. "Bad day?" he asked after the 5th minute. "Worst one yet." He nodded, pulled a pen from his jacket, and started drawing something on the taco bag. I leaned my head back and closed my eyes. When I looked over, he'd drawn a small boat on the bag, lopsided sails full of wind riding a massive wave. Underneath it, in his sharp draftsman's print, still floating. I almost cried. I didn't, but I kept the bag. The next morning, I called Priya. "Tell me you have something." "I have a lot of something. Come over." Priya Desai works out of a converted garage apartment in Oak Lawn. 2 monitors, a whiteboard, a French press that's always warm, and an organizational system that looks like chaos but functions like a Swiss watch. She'd been running the forensic audit for 6 weeks using the ERP access I'd given her through Harold Stanton, who understood the assignment without needing details. Harold is the kind of lawyer who's loyal to the institution, not the people in it. And to Harold, the institution was Eugene. One column was on the whiteboard, blue marker, one name, Paige. An email chain, printed and pinned. Paige had forwarded our entire Meridian bid pricing model margin structure subcontractor breakdown to a Gmail account belonging to Roger Kimball, Director of Business Development at Crestline Partners. 6 days before the bid deadline. "She didn't even use BCC," Priya said. "She forwarded it directly." I stared at the printout. The attachment name, Meridian _ bid _ architecture _ final.xlsx, the file I'd built. The file I'd walked Paige through over salad at my conference table while she took notes on her phone and said, "I'm learning so much from you." I sat down on Priya's couch. Not because my legs gave out. Because I needed to be closer to the ground. She asked me how I structured the subcontractor split. I said, "I thought she was learning the business." Priya watched me the way she watches spreadsheets looking for the thing that doesn't add up. "She was," Priya said. "Just not for us." I drove home with the windows down even though it was cold. The air felt necessary. Paige's perfume sandalwood was somehow still in my memory, attached to every conversation where I'd given her the blueprint to my own failure. 3 weeks later, Priya called again. Same tone, different weight. "Red column," she said. "It's Cole. Ridgeline Consulting LLC. 17 invoices over 14 months. $341,200. A shell company with no website, no employees, no address beyond a P.O. box in Plano. The bank account's sole signatory my brother. $340,000 in credit card debt," Priya said. 6 cards, 3 tied to a sportsbook in New Jersey. The gambling. I'd suspected for a year, the agitation, the late nights, the way he'd check his phone under the table during meetings with a particular kind of intensity. But $340,000. That Friday, I drove past Cole's office at lunch. Through the glass door, I watched him lean back in his Herman Miller chair, the chair that arrived in a week, while mine took 3 months, and check his phone with the particular intensity I now understood. He wasn't reading emails. He was checking odds. I stood there for 10 seconds. Then I walked away. He never saw me. 2 weeks before my birthday, Priya called one more time. Her voice was different. Careful. Quinn, sit down for this one. Black column. Kenneth. Summit Contracting Services. 23 payments over 18 months. $1.2 million. A company with a professional website, stock photos of hard hats but no employees. No project history. No contractor's license in the state of Texas. The money flowed from Aldrich Development to Summit Contracting to a personal brokerage account at Ironwood Capital Management. The account holder was my father. I didn't react the way I expected. No anger, no tears. Just a sound inside my chest like a cable snapping under tension, the kind you feel more than hear. My father was siphoning $1.2 million from the company his own father built. While I paid for his coffee at board dinners. While I stayed late rewriting reports he'd take credit for. While he told the board what Quinn means is, and restated my work in his voice. I drove to my parking garage, sat in the car, turned off the lights, stayed there for 20 minutes, hands on the steering wheel, staring at the concrete wall. Owen wasn't there this time. No tacos, no napkin sketch. Just me in a dark garage holding the weight of the fact that my father had been stealing from my grandfather while grooming my brother to replace me. The parking garage was silent, but inside my chest something had finished breaking and something else had started building. I drove to Priya's the next morning. She had all 3 columns on the whiteboard now, blue, red, black. 3 names, 3 betrayals, all feeding into one goal: remove, Quinn install coal. Keep the money flowing. There's a timeline component, Priya said. She drew a horizontal line across the bottom. Page's email to Crestline 6 weeks ago. Cole's subcontractor delays started 4 months ago. Kenneth's Summit payments 18 months. This wasn't reactive. They built this. They built it the way you build a building. Foundation first, structure second, facade last. The facade was the intervention. The structure was the manufactured crisis. The foundation was money. It was always money. What do you want to do? Priya asked. Nothing. Yet. They're planning a family meeting, I said. My birthday, Saturday. At the ranch. They're going to present these numbers. The Meridian loss. The delays, the client pullback, and ask Eugene to remove me. And you want to let them? I want them to finish talking. All of them. Every accusation, every slide, every rehearsed line. I want it all on the table before I put anything on mine. Priya leaned against her desk. Quinn, if you walk in there with this, you end your father's career, your brother's, Page's, possibly criminal referrals. I know. You ready for that? They leaked our bid. They stole $1.5 million. They manufactured a crisis to frame me. And they're doing it on my birthday. I looked at her. Yeah, I'm ready. Priya sat down, pulled out a notepad. All business now. Then we need rules. Ground rules. She counted on her fingers the same gesture she used when we'd stayed up until 3 a.m. in business school solving case studies with pad thai and cold coffee. 1. You walk in like it's your birthday. Smile. Hug your dad. Eat a lemon bar. They're not making cake. Of course they're not. 2. When they start their presentation, you let them finish. All of it. Every slide, every speech, every rehearsed line of concern. Don't interrupt. And if I want to throw my chair through the projector, you won't. 3. When they're done, you ask to discuss privately. 1 time. Calmly. They'll say no. Of course they will. They need the audience. That's why they invited board members to a birthday. That's rule 4. If they refuse, you plug in the flash drive. Their stage. Your truth. She held my gaze. Friend first, accountant second. Once you show this, Quinn, you can't unshow it. Your family changes permanently. They changed it permanently when they leaked my bid. I'm just telling people what already happened. Priya didn't argue. She picked up the flash drive from her desk, small, black, the size of a thumb, and set it in front of me. I'll have the presentation done in 4 days. Clean, factual, no editorializing. 3 sections: the bid leak, the vendor fraud, the phantom subcontractor. Every claim backed by documentation. 47 slides. Everything a 79-year-old man and a room full of board members can follow in real time. 47 slides. I'm thorough. She almost smiled. Cloud backup goes to Harold Stanton. I picked up the flash drive. It weighed nothing. It carried everything. Harold replied to the cloud link with one line: received. God help them. The following Tuesday, Kenneth called. His voice on the phone was warm, almost gentle. The voice he uses when he's about to do something he wants you to think is kind. Quinn, we're doing a family gathering at the ranch this Saturday. Your birthday. Nothing fancy. Just the family and a few board members. Dad wants everyone there. Sounds nice. It will be. I think it's important we all sit down together. Talk about the company's direction. As a family. I agree. Good. A pause. I love you, Quinn. You know that. I know, Dad. I hung up. Set the phone on my desk. Looked at the post-it note still stuck to my monitor. $47.3 million. Crestline. 8%. Saturday was 5 days away. My 32nd birthday. My family had built a stage, written the script, cast the roles, and invited an audience. They'd spent months constructing a crisis to justify one moment, the moment they took the company from the woman who'd spent her life earning it. They had no idea what I was bringing to the party. But then again, loud people never check the quiet one's purse. Saturday morning, my 32nd birthday. I woke up at 5:14 a.m. without an alarm. The ceiling was still dark. Dallas traffic hadn't started yet. The apartment was silent in the specific way it gets before something irreversible, not peaceful, just waiting. I lay there for 11 minutes. I know because I watched the clock on my nightstand tick from 5:14 to 5:25 while I ran through the presentation in my head. 47 slides, 3 sections. Every claim sourced, every document time-stamped, every accusation backed by something no one in that room could deny. Then I got up, showered, dried my hair, put on the navy blazer I wear to client meetings, the one that fits like armor. Black slacks. Flats, not heels. I wasn't dressing for a birthday party. I was dressing for the last meeting the Aldrich family would ever have in this configuration. My phone buzzed at 7:30. Owen. A photo of a napkin sketch, a birthday cake with a single candle drawn in ballpoint pen. Below it, "Happy birthday, you've got this. I'll be at my apartment with tacos and a terrible movie whenever you're done." I smiled. Set the phone down. Picked up the flash drive from my bedside table and put it in my blazer pocket. Then my phone buzzed again. Not Owen this time. Eugene. A text. Unusual. Eugene barely texts. His fingers are too thick for the screen and he hates autocorrect. Quinn. Whatever happens today, remember the truck. You were the one who asked about the buildings. Grandpa. Short. Imperfect. I read it 3 times. He knew something was coming. He might not know exactly what, but he knew. And in his own way, the only way Eugene knows, he was telling me I'd earn the right to be in that room, regardless of what anyone in it was about to say. I saved the text. Put the phone in my pocket next to the flash drive. At 9 a.m. Priya called. You okay? Ask me tonight. Quinn, one more time. Once you show this, it's done. Kenneth Colpage, all of it. Are you? Priya, I've been ready for 6 weeks. Silence. Then, call me when it's over. I don't care what time. I drove to the ranch. 30 minutes, radio off, windows cracked. The September heat was already building. I passed a development we'd built 2 years ago, Aldrich on the sign out front, and turned onto the gravel road. 11 cars in the driveway. More than a birthday. More than a family dinner. I parked at the end of the row next to Harold Stanton's silver Buick. Harold was already here. Good. The ranch house has a large study that Eugene converted into a conference room 15 years ago. Mahogany table, 12 chairs, a projector screen on the far wall, and a portrait of my grandmother Eleanor above the fireplace. She died in 2006. She's been watching every meeting in this room since. I walked through the front door. The hallway smelled like coffee and Lorraine's perfume, something floral, too sweet. The study door was open. The room was full. 15 people. Eugene sat at the head of the table. His bolo tie was turquoise today, the one he wears on what he calls serious occasions. His coffee was untouched. His face was unreadable. Kenneth stood near the projector laptop open clicker in his right hand. He was wearing a suit. My father doesn't wear suits to the ranch. Costume for the performance. Cole sat to Eugene's right. Legal pad pen uncapped. Rehearsed calm. Paige sat next to Cole. Cream blouse hands folded like a grief counselor's. She gave me a small, sad smile. The kind that says, "This hurts me too." Lorraine stood against the wall near the window adjusting her bracelet, a nervous habit I've watched since childhood. Board members Frank Weaver, Douglas Chen, Patricia Hale, and Robert Greer. 4 of 7. Not a quorum, but close enough to make a statement. Harold Stanton sat at the far end near the door. Leather portfolio closed, reading glasses on. His face gave nothing away. Cousins and Uncle Aunt Margot from San Antonio. Family witnesses, audience members for the show. Quinn! Kenneth stepped forward, hugged me. One arm. Brief. Happy birthday, sweetheart. Thanks, Dad. Have a seat. Your mother brought those lemon bars you like. I glanced at the sideboard. Lemon bars next to a coffee carafe. No cake. No candles. No presents. Lemon bars for a birthday. I sat down across from Eugene. Harold was to my left. I touched the flash drive in my blazer pocket. Still there. Still everything. Kenneth cleared his throat. Clicked to the first slide. Aldrich Development logo. Below it, Family and Board Review Company Direction. I want to start by saying this isn't easy, he began, warm, practiced. But as a family and as stewards of what Dad built, we have a responsibility to be honest, even when it's uncomfortable. He clicked. Revenue chart. Quarterly numbers trending downward my quarters. He'd left off the 3 before that where revenue had climbed 14%. As you can see, we've experienced a significant decline in performance since the current leadership structure took full effect. Current leadership structure. He meant me, but he wouldn't say my name. He'd let the numbers say it first. He clicked through 5 more slides. The Meridian loss. The timeline delays. The client pullback. Each one factually accurate and contextually dishonest. The data was real. The framing was a weapon. Cole stood, buttoned his jacket. I want to walk through the operational side. He pulled up the Meridian timeline, red markers everywhere. Subcontractor coordination has been chaotic. We're 11 weeks behind. Quinn, I've tried to flag these issues internally. I have the emails. He had the emails. CYA emails he'd written while personally sabotaging every sign-off. Each one positioning himself as the responsible brother trying to help his overwhelmed sister. I said nothing. I sat still. I let him finish. Paige went next. Stood slowly. Smoothed her blouse. I love Quinn. She's been nothing but generous with me. Her voice cracked slightly. Beautifully timed. But clients are hesitant. Partners are pulling back. Our competitive positioning is fundamentally off. She'd memorized that line. I could tell because she blinked twice after saying it. Lorraine spoke from the wall. This isn't about blame. This is about protecting what Eugene built. Quinn, honey, we love you. But sometimes love means being honest. You're overwhelmed. She looked at Eugene. Dad, I think it's time to consider a transition. I thought about her voice through the kitchen window. She doesn't have leadership instinct. She has control instinct. The woman who'd said that was now performing motherly sacrifice in front of 15 people. Kenneth took the floor again. Final slide. A proposed org chart. At the top, Cole Aldrich, interim CEO. Below that, Quinn Aldrich Phi-P of Strategic Planning. A made-up title. A window seat on a plane someone else was flying. We're recommending this to the board for a formal vote next week. Kenneth said. But today, as a family, we wanted to discuss it together. With Dad's blessing, he turned to Eugene. The room turned to Eugene. My grandfather sat at the head of the table, coffee untouched, bolo tie catching the window light, hands flat on the mahogany. He looked at Kenneth, at Cole, at the org chart on the screen. Then he looked at me. 10 seconds of silence. The ceiling fan turned overhead, slow and useless in the September heat. Someone's phone buzzed once. Patricia Hale uncrossed her legs and leaned forward. "Quinn," Eugene said, "you've heard what they've presented. Do you have anything to say?" I stood up, pushed the chair back carefully, buttoned my blazer, looked at the room. 15 faces. "I do," I said. I reached into my blazer pocket and pulled out the flash drive, held it up. "Before I start, I want to acknowledge what my father, my brother, and my sister-in-law just presented. Every number they showed you is real. The meridian loss is real. The timeline delays are real." Kenneth nodded. Cole leaned back satisfied. Paige's hands relaxed. "What they didn't present," I said, "is why." I walked to the laptop. Kenneth stepped aside. I plugged in the flash drive. The screen flickered. Priya's presentation loaded. Title page, Internal Audit, Aldrich Development Group. This is a forensic audit conducted over the past 6 weeks by an independent analyst. Every document is sourced from our own systems, our email servers, our banking records. Nothing external, nothing fabricated. Just our own data telling its own story. The room went quiet. The kind of quiet that has a pulse. I clicked to section 1. Page. 6 days before the Meridian bid deadline, an email was sent from a company address to a personal Gmail account belonging to Roger Kimball, Director of Business Development at Crestline Partners. I showed the email, header timestamp attachment, Page's address in the from field. The attachment contained our complete bid architecture, margin structure, subcontractor breakdown, pricing by phase. 6 days later, Crestline submitted a bid 8% below ours. Not a coincidence. A copy. I looked at Paige. The sad smile was gone. In its place was something I'd never seen: the absence of a performance. The mask wasn't cracking. It was simply no longer there. Underneath was nothing. Frank Weaver's voice was flat. "Paige, is that your email address?" It was supposed to be a general market comparison. You forwarded our entire bid to a competitor," I said. "The metadata is time-stamped. The attachment matches our internal file byte for byte." I clicked to section 2. Cole. Over the past 14 months, 17 vendor invoices have been processed through a company called Ridgeline Consulting, LLC. Total $341,200. Ridgeline Consulting has no website, no employees, no physical address. The bank account was opened 11 months ago. The sole signatory is Cole Aldrich. Cole's calm disintegrated. All at once. He stood, knocking his legal pad to the floor. "That's a legitimate consulting arrangement. The bank account feeds directly into 6 credit card accounts carrying $340,000 in combined debt. 3 tied to a sports book registered in New Jersey." The room made a sound. Not a gasp, something lower. A collective intake of breath. Douglas Chen removed his glasses. Frank Weaver was writing fast, tight notes. Patricia Hale was watching Cole with the expression of a woman who'd been waiting for a shoe to drop and had just heard both. Cole looked at Kenneth. The look was a flare, a distress signal. "Help me." Kenneth didn't move, because Kenneth knew what was coming next. I clicked to section 3. Kenneth. Over the last 18 months, 23 payments totaling $1.2 million were issued to Summit Contracting Services. My father approved every one. The invoices, the corporate filings, the empty website, the bank routing. Summit Contracting has no contractor's license in Texas, no employees, no project history. The payments were routed from Aldrich Development to Summit Contracting to a personal brokerage account at Ironwood Capital Management. The account holder is Kenneth Aldrich. My father went through a deflection spiral, each defense weaker than the last. That's taken out of context. First defense, automatic. Summit was a legitimate vendor. We used them for second. He stopped because he couldn't name a single project. This is a family matter. This isn't appropriate for third. He looked around the room. Nobody met his eyes. Quinn, I think you're making a mistake you can't take back. Fourth, a threat dressed as concern. But threats require leverage, and my father had none left. I let the silence breathe. Then I clicked to the final section. Timeline. Page's email to Kreslin August 14th. Cole's subcontractor delays began in June. Kenneth's Summit payments ongoing for 18 months, accelerating in the last quarter. I paused. The Meridian crisis wasn't a failure of leadership. It was manufactured, deliberately, over months, to create the conditions for exactly this meeting. I turned off the projector. The screen went dark. The room went bright. You're right about one thing, I said. I did fail. I failed to stop you. I paused. Let it land. But you failed worse. You tried to sink the ship to prove I couldn't sail. And you left the blueprints in the engine room. Then I looked at Lorraine. She was standing near the window, hand over her mouth. I said it quietly, just for the room. And Mom, you told your friend I don't have leadership instinct. You said it on Eugene's porch while I was carrying his brisket. Lorraine's face went white. Not the white of embarrassment, the white of someone who just realized the person they underestimated had been listening all along. Nobody spoke. The ceiling fan turned. Eleanor watched from above the fireplace. Frank Weaver reached for his folder. He opened it to a page I recognized, the Oakstone corridor analysis. My analysis. The one Kenneth had presented as his own 6 months ago. The one Frank had complimented Kenneth for. Frank looked at the page, then at Kenneth, then at me. He picked up a pen, crossed out Kenneth's name at the top, and wrote Quinn Aldrich in block letters. He didn't say anything. He just turned the page around so the room could see it, then set it down. It was the smallest gesture. It was the loudest thing in the room. Eugene stood, slowly, the way a man stands when he's carrying 53 years of work on his shoulders and the weight just doubled. He braced one hand on the table. I built this company with my hands. He held them up. Thick knuckles, liver spots, a scar across his left palm from a construction accident in 1974. I poured the first foundation myself. I signed every loan. I shook every hand. He lowered his hands. A storm tests a captain. I've always believed that. He looked at Kenneth. But betrayal tests a family. Kenneth opened his mouth. Eugene raised one finger. Kenneth closed it. You tried to sink this ship. My ship. To prove she couldn't sail it. And you used my money, my name, and my trust to do it. He turned to the board members. Effective immediately. Kenneth is removed from the board and from all advisory roles. Cole is terminated. Page Aldrich's employment is ended today. He paused. Harold will handle the legal particulars. Harold opened his leather portfolio. He'd had the documents ready. Eugene looked at me last. His eyes were wet. Not crying, Eugene doesn't cry in rooms full of people, but wet in the way that old grief and new pride can live in the same place at the same time. Quinn has my full authority, operational, strategic, and fiduciary. As of this moment, she reports to the board, and the board reports to me. That's the structure. That's final. He sat down, picked up his coffee, took a long sip. Patricia Hale said it from her chair. The audit should be referred to outside counsel. If criminal thresholds have been met, that's not a family decision. That's a legal one. Harold nodded, already making notes. Cole was still standing, legal pad on the floor. Grandpa, you can't, I'm your grandson. Eugene didn't look up from his coffee. You were my grandson when you stole from me too. Cole walked out. He didn't slam the door. He just left the way. Guilty people leave quickly, eyes on the floor. Kenneth stood. His suit was pristine. His face was ruins. He buttoned his jacket, a reflex, and looked at me. Not with anger, with recognition. He saw for the first time that the daughter he'd dismissed as sentimental had outplanned him, documented him, and outweighted him, without raising her voice once. Quinn, he said. Just my name. Nothing after it. Lorraine followed him to the door. Then she stopped. Not because Kenneth was waiting, he'd already walked through. She stopped on her own. She turned back, looked at the room, at Eugene, at the dark projector screen, at Frank Weaver's page with my name written over her husband's. She picked up her purse from the chair. Slowly, deliberately. The way you pick up something you've decided to take with you permanently. Then she walked past Kenneth through the door at her own pace, not following him, just leaving. On her own terms for the first time in a marriage built on following. The door closed. Not a slam. A click. The particular sound of something ending quietly. Paige was the last to stand. She picked up her phone, placed it in her bag, and walked toward the door. She stopped beside me, close enough that I could smell the sandalwood. I was just trying to help Cole, she whispered. You leaked a $47 million bid to our competitor. She blinked. The blankness again. Then she walked out and closed the door behind her with a click so soft it sounded like a period at the end of a very long sentence. The room held 12 people now. Board members, Harold, Eugene, and me. I stood at the head of the table, my grandfather's table, my grandmother's portrait above the fireplace, my name on the buildings outside, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years. Not victory, not satisfaction, not relief. Just ground, solid level mine. The ceiling fan turned. The coffee was cold. The lemon bars sat untouched on the sideboard. Nobody ate them. I need to pause here for a second. When I plugged that flash drive in, my hands were steady. My voice was clear. But my stomach was in free fall. Because I knew every slide I clicked through was a door that only opened one way. You don't show your father's fraud to a room full of board members and then go back to Sunday brisket. You don't expose your brother's gambling debts and then pass the coleslaw. So let me ask you, do you think I should have handled it privately, or was the boardroom the right place at the right time in front of the right people? Tell me in the comments. And if you're still here, the story isn't over. What happened in the next 4 months is the part that actually changed everything. The ranch emptied slowly. Not the way a party ends. It emptied the way a courtroom empties. Quietly. With purpose. Frank Weaver shook my hand on the porch. Said nothing. Douglas Chen followed. Patricia Hale stayed 20 extra minutes going through the audit page by page with Harold. When she finished, she looked at me over her reading glasses. Monday morning, my office. Bring Harold and the full file. She paused. And Quinn, well done. Aunt Margot hugged me on the way out. Your grandmother would have loved every second of that. By noon, the ranch was empty except for Eugene and me. He was on the porch. Same chair. Coffee refilled. The Financial Times still unread. I sat down. We didn't talk for a while. The horses were in the pasture. A mockingbird was going through its repertoire on the fence post. Cardinals, blue jays, a car alarm it had learned from the neighbor's driveway. I knew about some of it, he said finally. Not the specifics, but I knew something was wrong with Kenneth's numbers. I started asking Harold to pull records 4 months ago. Why didn't you tell me? He took a long sip of coffee. Because I needed to see what everyone would do when the ship started rocking. Your father panicked and grabbed for the wheel. Your brother drilled holes in the hull, and you went below deck and found the leak. He reached over and patted my hand once. His palm was rough and warm. That's why it's yours, Quinn. Not because I chose you, because you chose right. I sat there on that porch in the chair I'd sat in since I was 9 years old, and I didn't cry. But something released a knot behind my sternum that had been tightening for 3 years. It didn't untie. It just loosened enough for me to breathe without counting. Happy birthday, he said. I laughed, short, cracked, wet at the edges. Some party. Best one I've been to in years. The consequences came in the language my family feared most: paperwork. Kenneth received formal notification by Wednesday. Board removal, termination, referral to outside counsel. Harold delivered it personally. Kenneth opened the envelope, read the first page, and said, Harold, I've known you for 30 years. Harold said, I know. That's why I came in person. Kenneth didn't fight it. He just went quiet. The way loud people go quiet when they realize the room has stopped listening. Cole hired a lawyer, Bradley Fisk, Fort Worth, corporate disputes. Fisk sent a letter threatening defamation. Harold responded with a 13-page filing including the Ridgeline bank records and sportsbook transaction logs. Fisk withdrew 3 days later. Then Cole called me, Thursday night. I was at my apartment eating leftover pad thai, a meal I'd started associating with crisis since business school. Quinn. His voice was wrong, thin. I need help. With what, Cole? The gambling. I owe people. Not just the credit cards. Other people. The kind who don't send letters. I closed my eyes. The specific exhaustion of loving someone who has spent years trying to destroy you and then calls you when they're drowning. Check into a program, a real one, inpatient, 30 days minimum. I'll make sure it's covered through the company's EAP. Do it voluntarily before the legal situation makes it mandatory. He hung up. 2 days later, he checked into a facility in Austin. Crestline Partners cooperated not from goodwill, from self-preservation. They paid Aldrich a $3.8 million settlement. Roger Kimball was terminated. The Meridian Tower contract was reopened. We won it back, adjusted pricing $44.1 million, $3 million less, but honest money. The company stabilized. Revenue recovered by January. 2 new clients in December. The board met quarterly. I presented. Nobody interrupted. Nobody restated my work in their own voice. The first month after that Saturday, I did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I bought myself lunch. Not a board dinner. A sandwich from the deli on the corner. I sat on a bench outside. Ate slowly. Didn't check my phone. The second week, I replaced my office chair, the standard model Kenneth had delayed for 3 months. Not a Herman Miller like Cole's, just the ergonomic one I'd originally ordered. For the first time in 3 years, my back didn't ache at 6 p.m. Owen started leaving napkin sketches on my desk every morning. Didn't say anything. Just set them down and walked away. I noticed on day 7. On day 14, I kept one Eugene's F250 truck drawn from memory, lopsided, the wheels too big for the scale. I taped it to my monitor next to the post-it that still read $47.3 million. Crestline, 8%. The post-it was still there, but now it had company. Eugene started coming to the office Tuesdays and Thursdays instead of every day. He still wore the bolo tie, still drank black coffee from the same mug, a ceramic one I'd made him in college pottery class. Lopsided, glazed unevenly with his initials scratched into the bottom. He'd used it every day for 11 years. Never mentioned it. That's Eugene. One Tuesday in February, he called me into his office. Corner office, 14th floor, view of the I-35 overpass and 3 buildings with Aldrich on the side. I'm stepping back, he said. Officially, full retirement. Board retains me as chairman emeritus, which means I show up, eat the sandwiches, and nod. Grandpa, don't argue. I'm not leaving because I doubt you. I'm leaving because I don't need to worry anymore. He leaned back. The chair creaked with authority. 53 years, Quinn. That's enough. The company has what it needs. What does it need? He smiled. The kind that lives more in the eyes than the mouth. Someone who shows up. I flew to Austin to visit Cole in March. He'd completed the inpatient program. He looked different. Thinner. Older. But there was something in his eyes, a quiet that wasn't rehearsed. We sat in the facility's garden. Plastic chairs. A water feature that sounded like a broken faucet. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said. Good. He flinched, then nodded. Fair. Cole, I don't hate you, but I can't trust you. Not yet. He looked at the water feature. What about Dad? I can't carry Dad right now. I'm carrying the company. I'm carrying what he broke. That's enough. We sat for 10 more minutes. A grackle landed on the fence and screamed at nothing the way Texas grackles do. When I left, he walked me to the parking lot. Quinn, I turned. You were always better at this than me. I think I knew that. I think that's why I. He stopped, shook his head. Anyway. Anyway. The word people use when the truth is too heavy to carry the rest of the way. Kenneth. I haven't spoken to my father since that Saturday. He's sent 4 letters. Handwritten on stationery. The first was defensive. The second an explanation. The third an apology that still blamed the circumstances. The fourth was 3 sentences. Quinn, I underestimated you. I think I always did. I'm sorry for what that cost both of us. I keep that letter in my desk drawer. Not because I've forgiven him. Because it's the first honest thing he's written in his life, and I want to remember what it took to get there. Everything. It took losing everything. Lorraine calls once a month, 4 to 7 minutes. She asks about the company. She asks about Eugene. Last month she said, I should have seen it, Quinn. I didn't respond right away. Then I said, you did see it. You just chose not to say anything. She went quiet. Then, you're right. That might be the most progress Lorraine has ever made. Owen proposed on a Tuesday. No ring at first, he gave me a napkin. We were at the same taco truck on McKinney Avenue sitting on the tailgate of his pickup. He pulled out a pen, turned the napkin over, and sketched a house. 2 stories, a porch, big windows, a tree in the front yard too large for the scale of the drawing but somehow right. I want to build this, he said, with you, for us. Is this a proposal? He reached into his other pocket. A ring. Simple. A single stone. The napkin was the proposal. This is just the paperwork. I laughed. The kind of laugh that comes from somewhere deep and unguarded. I said yes. The taco truck guy honked his horn twice because he'd been watching through the window. Last Sunday, I sat at the head of Eugene's table for the first time. He insisted. He took my old seat at the far end and complained the brisket was dry. It wasn't, it never is. And Owen sketched the stock pond on a napkin, while Harold Stanton argued with Aunt Margot about college football. It was small. It was imperfect. It was mine. After dinner, I stood on the porch. Same porch. Same view. The sun was dropping behind the tree line, turning the pasture gold. Eugene came out, stood next to me, didn't say anything for a full minute. Then, you know what your grandmother Eleanor used to say. What? The loudest person in the room is never the strongest. They're just the most afraid. He went inside. Screen door clapped behind him. I stayed on the porch. The Dallas skyline was a smudge on the horizon. Somewhere in that smudge on 3 buildings I could name by heart the word Aldrich caught the last of the light. My name is Quinn Aldrich. I'm 32 years old. I run a $180 million development company in Dallas, Texas. I have a grandfather who drinks black coffee from a lopsided mug, a fiancé who proposes with napkin sketches, a company that almost broke, a family that actually did, and a birthday I'll never forget, not because of what they tried to take, but because of what I refused to give up. So let me ask you this. Eugene knew something was wrong for months. He watched. He waited. He let the storm build to see who would steer and who would sink. Some people say that was wisdom. Some people say that was reckless, that his silence gave Kenneth and Cole the room they needed to do real damage. What do you think, was Eugene right to test his family that way? Or did his silence make everything worse? Tell me in the comments. And if this story stayed with you, if you've ever had to prove yourself to people who should have believed in you from the start, I'd love for you to share it. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.